bio because I think that's boring as hell. And you put stuff in your bio that you probably shouldn't put in your bio. So I'm just going to tell you who I am. Well, who is Thomas McGee? Anybody ever heard of Thomas McGee? Yeah, I had neither before I started working for him, so there. Thomas McGee is an insurance broker, commercial insurance broker based in Kansas City, and they write a lot of contractors as part of their business. I will have worked at Thomas McGee for 9 years on April 15th. And the only reason I know that date is because why? Yeah. So I'll be there 9 years. Prior to working for Thomas McGee, I worked for a large general contractor in the Kansas City area. I worked for them for about 7 years. When they went under is when I went to work at Thomas McGee. And I also worked 7 years at an international engineering / construction firm that you might have heard of called Black & Veatch. And both of my jobs with Black & Veatch and with the general contractor were safety. So I have a construction safety background, but I'm working as a loss control person for an insurance broker. My passion is construction safety. And I put this presentation together years ago when I was doing construction safety, but I've kind of changed it and updated it to apply today. I have a real passion about safety in the construction industry, and I'm tired of it being treated as an add-on or a cost or something that takes time or something that's going to cost more money, and I'm sick of it. But I also am sick of contractors who spout the slogan, safety first. Anybody in this room? I should ask first, who do I have in this room? I know my students, okay? For the companies that are in here, who do I have? Safety people, owners, decision makers, and you don't have to tell me who you work for. Just kind of spout out. Engineer.
Safety.
Okay.
Field operations.
Field operations.
More safety.
So not really the upper level company people that can make decisions, right? And a lot of this depends on them, but I'm going to tell you some things that you can do. I see you over there. I'm honing in on you over there. I'm going to tell you some things that you can do if you're not an upper level decision maker that will make a difference as well. How many of your companies spout the slogan, safety first? Or do you use it as your safety slogan and you have it all over your pickup trucks and stuff? We used to, at the contractor I worked for, we used to do that until we got smart and figured out. And you guys have to excuse my colorful language because I did do construction safety for several years, close to 14 years. Safety first is the biggest crock of shit ever. And we figured that out when we had it plastered all over our pickup trucks, because if you have an issue and you're spouting safety first, and that issue involves schedule or production or something like that, does safety come first? No, it doesn't. We all know it doesn't. Don't tell me it does, because I'm going to tell you you're a liar. It is not first. And then everybody sees that, and they see you walking around with your safety first on your hard hats and your safety first on your trucks. And this relates really good to the presentation that just happened this morning. People look at you and say, oh, they're lying, and I don't believe them, I don't trust them, okay? As a safety person, I don't think safety needs to be first. Have you ever heard a safety person say safety doesn't need to be first? Huh? No. It doesn't need to be first, okay? Here, sit right up here by me. Okay. Now what I'm going to focus on today is quit worrying about the regulations, quit worrying about the rules, and start making safety part of your everyday work operations where it's part of your culture, it's just part of how you do business. So it doesn't have to be first, but don't put it down here on the bottom where you gripe and moan because OSHA's going to visit your job site, or you had something happen and it's going to cost you money because now you're going to have to pay for this. If you put safety on the same level as cost, quality, and schedule, cost, quality, schedule, and safety, and you give it the same amount of importance as you give all those other things, you're going to be successful. And it doesn't have to be first. It just needs to be part of your business operations like all those other things are. Okay? You're not ever going to perfect it, so just make it part of how you do business. So today we're going to go through how your safety performance reflects the culture of your organization, how every incident that you have on your project, whether it's a near miss or an injury or property damage, goes back to your culture. Some leadership actions that can affect culture, which in turn can affect results, hopefully. And the importance of change, because I'm going to tell you right now, most of the companies in here, if you're going to start treating safety as part of your business operations and give it the same amount of importance that you give everything else, you're going to have to affect some change in your organizations, correct? Now, I do want to ask somebody, and you decide who this wants to be. There's no clock in here, and I only have 50 minutes to talk, and if you haven't figured this out, I can talk forever, okay? I have done this presentation where it takes an hour and a half. I've done this presentation for some of my accounts where it takes 4 hours because you're actually getting feedback and involvement and examples and stuff going on in those organizations. And now I have to do this presentation in 50 minutes. I need somebody to tell me when it's 25 till. Can somebody do that? Who wants to do that? Will you remember? Mm-hmm. Okay. So flag me down so I can wrap it up with 10 minutes left, okay? So we're going to look at all of this stuff. What the hell is culture? What is culture? Here's the definition out of the dictionary. Do you guys know what a dictionary is? What does culture mean to you? It was discussed this morning, quite a bit, in the presentation this morning. What does culture mean to you?
Values, things you believe in.
And things that you just do without thinking, right? Things that if you're a good person, you're just going to do them without thinking. Or maybe you're not a good person, it's part of your culture too, okay? But it's things that just happen because they're part of who you are and what you do, okay? Everybody has a safety culture, everybody. Now, it may not be where you want it to be, it may not be a high priority norm, it may not be a norm at all, it may be an extra, it may be an add-on. But you do have a place to start. You do have a place to build on, okay? So when we talk about making your safety culture better, you do have a starting point, because I work with companies who have said, we don't have a culture. We don't have anything. We suck. I say, no, you have something. You have something or you wouldn't be here to talk about this, okay? So you do have a place to start. What you need to think about is my safety in my organization in existence so I don't get OSHA citations, so I don't get EPA citations? So you're compliance driven only. So I'm going to tell you right now, if all you're doing is doing stuff to be compliant with laws and regulations, you are not performing as a best of the best company when it comes to safety. Those are minimum standards and minimum requirements, okay? Can somebody give me a really good example of that? I don't want to just talk at you. How about this? If you look at the OSHA fall protection regulations and for construction, it's not just at 6 foot, right? There's different thresholds for fall protection for different things in the standard. At scaffolds, you get 10 feet. Steel erectors get 15 feet when they're erecting steel. But the best of the best company, if you're a steel erector, it doesn't matter that you can have up to 15 feet when you're erecting steel. You're going to have 100% fall protection in place at 6 feet no matter what. That's what I mean when I say you've got to go beyond compliance. And there are companies that do that and go beyond the standard that's out there for fall protection. Okay? So think about that. If you're just compliance driven, you're not going to be the best of the best. think about your companies now. Safety cultures are often lacking in a lot of things. And I'm going to tell you what I see most of the time when I go out on job sites, okay? Companies won't tolerate injuries, but they'll tolerate risk. Does that make sense? So you can go out on a job site and see things that aren't done right, and the company will say, we had to do it this way to get it done, but it's not going to take that long, and we're going to be really careful, okay? But if they're doing it wrong, because they're being really careful, and it's not going to take that long, and somebody gets hurt, the first thing they're going to say is, you weren't following our rule or our policy. And who typically makes these decisions? That they'll go ahead and take the risk. The superintendent out in the field. I'm going to take the risk because I'm going to get this job done on time. I know it violates our company policy. Somebody falls, somebody gets hurt, but the superintendent isn't held accountable because the superintendent makes the company money all the time. Okay? Here's a big one. Employees don't feel they have a voice. They just feel like people are going to tell them what to do. Okay? They don't feel like they can have input. They don't feel like they can... You know, what safety usually ends up being for employees is a way to hold something over your head to get something they want. Especially if you're in a union environment, everything becomes a safety issue, which isn't even a safety issue. They make it a safety issue, trying to get what they want. But they don't feel they have a voice, so they don't offer solutions. What they do is bitch, right? This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, you're not doing this right, but they don't offer any solutions. Well, if they feel like they have a voice and they can identify things that are wrong and they can come up with a solution, wouldn't you listen to them? They're the people that are out there doing the work all the time. They're the people that are in the trenches. They probably know the best solutions for some of the problems we face. So they're probably the best people to develop those solutions. So we need to listen to them, but they need to feel like they can sound off and have a voice. Here's the biggest thing I see on job sites. Maybe upper level management is talking to mid-level management about safety. Maybe mid-level management is talking to field people about safety. Maybe safety people are talking to company employees about safety. But what happens is that the employees out in the field don't talk to each other about safety. Here's what I hear, and they kind of spit in the face of it. If they're working with somebody and a safety person starts coming on the side, you know what I hear? Don't let Sharon see you doing that. You better not let Sharon catch you doing that. Why aren't they saying, why are you doing that? You're putting yourself at risk and you're putting me at risk because I'm working with you. They don't do that, do they? Do you see that going on? We need to get to that level where employees are talking to each other about safety and not expecting it to be somebody else's job, okay? And then what are we measuring? What are we measuring? And these are never going to go away. It's going to happen all the time to say whether we're not successful or not with safety in our organizations. What do we measure? You have to give people this all the time when they're pre-qualifying you. What do you measure? Injury rates, takes away from work pace rates. What's your EMR, right? So those numbers are never going to go away, but they're also lagging indicators. So we shouldn't be measuring our safety performance on stuff that we never intended to happen. Do people intend for accidents to happen on their jobs? Not today. Years ago they did. Years ago, if you were going to build a big project, let's say you had a $250 million project on the books, you would sit down and bid the cost of at least 2 fatalities into that project because you expected it to happen. That doesn't happen anymore. But we're measuring our performance on things that we did not intend to occur. we need to start looking at measuring our safety performance in our organizations, because you're not going to get away from those numbers for qualifying for owners and other contractors. What meaningful activities are you doing in your organization that makes safety part of your culture? Does every level of employee have specific safety activities they are responsible for as part of their performance evaluation? And if they do, say you have a supervisor that is required to do a safety inspection at least weekly, it should be more than that on a job. A documented safety inspection, is it pencil whipped or is it meaningful? Those are the kind of things you need to be setting up to measure, are you being successful? But you also need to hold people accountable for what those activities are. So accountability plays a big part in it. I've numerous times had companies tell me, I really should fire that supervisor, but he's made me so much money, I can't do it. Eventually, that's going to get you into a lot of trouble, okay? And those are the renegades that are out there doing what they want to do because they know they're not going to get fired because they're making the company money, okay? I worked with some of those. Have you all worked with some of those? I think we've all worked with some of those, okay? What level do you think you're performing at? So when you look at these levels here, I would bet most companies are between level 1 and 2. Wouldn't you agree with that? Okay. So most of us have the compliance programs in place. Most of us are investigating accidents or incidents when they happen. Most of us are having safety meetings. The lovely toolbox meeting that I think is a big crock of shit as well, okay? Some of us have to do JSAs because they're required by the owners or the general contractors that we're working for, but we only do them for those jobs that they're required for. We don't move that over into the rest of our projects. I would bet most of us aren't doing near-miss investigations. You probably have a policy for it, you probably have a form for it, but it never gets done because I'm too busy to do a near-miss investigation. Nothing was damaged, nobody got hurt, so I'm not going to take the time to deal with it, okay? And most of you are doing inspections, but how often are they done? Are they pencil whipped? Are they meaningful? What are you doing with your inspections? So I would say most people are between level 1 and 2, but you guys, we have level 3, 4, 5, and 6 to get to where we're functioning and where we have a highly functioning safety culture where safety is just part of our everyday doing business. So do you see how we have a lot of things we can improve on if you look at these other levels? If most of us are at level 1 and 2, and I bet most of us at those levels think, we're one of the better contractors in this area because we're at these levels. I know other contractors that aren't doing any of this, but look how much better we're doing. Okay?
Got a question?
Yes. Want me to go back?
Yes. Since you brought it up, near-miss reporting, can I ask you a personal question?
Yes.
Since you are a safety person.
Yes. And I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know everything, so if I say I don't know. Hey, everybody write down, a female presenter admitted she does not know everything, because most women know everything. Okay.
As a former safety director and all that, what did you do? What did you actually do with the near-miss reports that you had received on your desk?
We didn't do it. We were at the level where we didn't do them, okay? But if you get them on your desk, and you should be treating them just like an accident or an injury or a property damage. Now, what are you doing your investigations for on those? What are you doing them for? To identify the root cause, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit. Once you identify that root cause, if you had an accident or property damage, if you just file that report, it's worthless. Why are you even doing an investigation? Your whole purpose of the investigation is to learn from what went wrong so you don't repeat yourself And you can do that with your near misses. You can learn from what went wrong, but you have to share that information across the board. So if you're a big company and you have projects all over the United States, you have to share that information with everybody. And guess what? Then you have a safety meeting that's meaningful instead of a stupid toolbox talk. And you talk about the results of this near miss and the investigation, and that's your safety meeting, not a canned toolbox talk. Does that
Oh,
help?
I know, I understand the velocity and all that stuff. To
Okay.
me, it just seems like, as a subcontractor, sometimes, we're required to fill them out, we fill them out.
And then you never see anything. But here's what you can do as a subcontractor. If you're GC or your CM
You
or,
know what, what's even worse is on some jobs, they want you to find near misses for other people. And then it becomes a spike thing,
yeah.
it's us against electricians or whatever the case may be.
And don't blame that, but if you're doing a near miss for your stuff, and you're turning it in to somebody and they're not doing it, anything with it, whether it's the owner or the GC or the CM or whoever it is, you as a subcontractor, use that information to make yourselves better and don't worry about everybody else, okay? Use it. Because if you don't use it, your employees are all going to have a bitter taste in their mouth about why are we doing near misses. But if you use it with them, they might start thinking, hey, this isn't a bad thing, and we're going to start reporting this. And then try doing it on jobs that don't require it. Okay? How many of you have worked on Army Corps of Engineer jobs? And you follow the EM 385, which is a lot different, a lot more strict than the OSHA standards, right? I actually have accounts who do a lot of work like that, and they do some really good safety stuff on those projects, and on those projects only. And then if they're not working on those projects, they do their typical stuff. And what I've challenged them with is yours or your safety numbers better on your Army Corps of Engineer projects? Well, yeah. I said, so why are you not doing what you're required to do there on all your projects? Okay? So we can only achieve safety excellence if we have highly functioning and mature safety cultures. The hardest part about this is typically that's going to start at the top and trickle down, right? But at the very end, I'm going to tell you some things you can do, even if you don't have that from the top trickling down, especially safety people. I'm going to tell you some things that you can do, and even my engineer, to personally, when you're interacting with people on your projects, you're going to build better relationships, and you're going to get more support for what you're doing if you start doing some of this stuff, okay? Here's what happens when you have a highly functioning safety culture. All of those people out in the field that are working for you have good judgment, and they're making good decisions, and they're not saying, hey, this isn't going to take but 5 minutes, so I'm not going to follow our policy, I just want to get it done on time. They're going to work differently. They're going to think about things before they happen. They're going to pre-plan, okay? And how many of you pre-plan all of your safety stuff? You know, when I worked for this general contractor, they actually sent us to a print reading class. Now it's all on the computer now, but if you can't tell, I have gray hair, so I'm a little bit older. It wasn't all on the computer then, so they actually sent us to a print reading class so we could sit down with plans for a project before it was any time near starting that project and outline the list of safety stuff that we needed to identify for not only our self-perform work, but our subcontractors' work. So when you're having pre-construction meetings, when you're sending out your contracts, when you're doing safety stuff for those contracts, you have all that information up front, okay? So you pre-plan, you get everybody involved in those safety processes. People feel like they can raise issues and provide constructive criticism, not just bench sessions, okay? They can help develop solutions because they know those solutions will be implemented. They're doing the near misses and utilizing that for a benefit, not just to say, hey, we're investigating near misses, turn in a report, okay? And then they can actively participate in the inspection process. When and if OSHA ever has to show up on a job site, they're knowledgeable when OSHA goes to interview them about what's going on that project when it comes to safety. So how do you start to improve it? Well, there's 6 criteria for safety excellence, and I took this from Dan Peterson's The Challenge of Change. First of all, you have to have upper management support. Sometimes you don't get it, and there's still things you can do. This was discussed this morning. We tend to have a lack of middle management people who are willing or able to make decisions affecting a company. So you have to have active middle management involvement. And when I'm talking here, I'm talking more of your project manager, project engineer roles, because what do engineers usually do? They don't really care about safety that much, do they? They're in their technical engineering mind, right? But you need to start thinking about it, okay? So they need to be involved and think about what tasks are you doing as an engineer, can you incorporate some safety stuff into? Because it should be a task on everybody's desk, safety should be. Now that doesn't mean it's safety first, it's part of everybody's business in our work operation, okay? And I highlighted this, forced supervisory performance. If your company has a full-time safety manager, safety director, if you have full-time safety employees on a job site, I learned this. I made a career change when I went into construction safety. I worked in another job for several years. I tried to get out of it. I couldn't. I went to night school and got a master's in safety management, okay? So I could make a career change. And then I went into construction safety. Every single day, I heard when I had class, in every single class, the main person responsible for safety in an organization is the supervisor. And I'm in school to be a safety manager, and that's not my job. The main person responsible for safety is the supervisor. What is a safety person supposed to do? We can all just get fired now because it's not our job, right? What's a safety person supposed to do?
Oversee it.
Okay, or assist, or coach, or mentor, or provide resources. They're supposed to be there to help that supervisor do the safety for the job, okay? Because that safety person can't be, and when I talk supervisor here, if we're looking at a job site, it's not just superintendent, it's foreman, it's general foreman, anybody in a supervisory role. Because they're with those groups of employees all day long. Your safety person can't do that on 5, 10 different projects, okay? You have to have a high level of participation. Safety is not the safety person's job. You don't wait for the safety person to come on the job site to do a meaningful safety meeting. You don't say, hey, our safety meeting needs to be on Tuesdays because that's when our safety person is available to come out and do the safety meeting, okay? It's not somebody else's job. Everybody is personally responsible for it. This allows people to be flexible. Now, and when I talk about this, it's just as simple as one supervisor might want to do their meaningful safety activity on a Wednesday because that works for them and it works for their crews, where the other one might want to do it on a Monday, okay? Don't tell your employees, I want toolbox talks every Monday morning, okay? And then what are you going to get? You're going to send them out the monthly 4 sheets of toolbox talks that you get from the AGC or whoever you get them from that don't even apply to their work operations, and they're going to stand up there and read them, or they're going to pass them around and say, sign off on this, okay? Let's have your supervisor come up with a safety meeting that has something to do with your work operations on your project and make it meaningful, and then people are going to listen and participate. This will get employees thinking, hey, they really do care about me and my safety on this job. Okay, remember when I told you that every incident or property damage or something that happens goes back and reflects your culture? So typically when you see a flow chart, you start with culture and you move down, but I'm going to go backwards. I'm just going to throw out a scenario that may not apply to you, but I want to go through this really fast. Somebody gets the tip of their finger amputated because they're working with a piece of equipment that's missing a guard. That's the incident, okay? Well, that stupid employee, here's what we think. That stupid employee knows that they shouldn't be working on that piece with that piece of equipment with the guard missing. They know better than that. And how many times when you see an accident investigation, do you see something written on there, the employee knew better? Okay? So, yeah, this employee knew better than that, but he did it anyway. I'm saying he, but it could be anybody, okay? The employee did it anyway. They did it anyway because they were expected to, and it's just how things go at work, okay? So let me explain that a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and work with this. I know it's wrong. I'm not going to complain that the guard's not on here because this job has to be done, and I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do what I was told to do because this is normally what happens at work. They pulled that equipment out for maintenance. So it went in for maintenance. While it was being worked on, when they went to put the guard back on, they broke the guard. They didn't have another one. They got online and ordered it. It's not going to be in for a week, but this job needs to be done in the next 2 days, and we're too cheap to go rent another piece of equipment. So we're just going to send this equipment back out in the field and tell them to get the job done. And if you're delivering that kind of equipment to the field and expecting them to get the job done, that employee who knows better, they send us shit equipment all the time that's missing guards, but I'm expected to work with it. Does that not reflect the norms and the culture of the organization? So we want to go backwards from that. Okay? How's my time?
Fine.
Safety nerds in the room calling all safety nerds. What's the Heinrich triangle? You heard of it? Did they quit teaching it? Do they still teach it? Yes, no, maybe?
First time seeing it.
First time seeing it? They might quit teaching it. They taught it when I was in school. This guy developed this theory that, and there's numbers, there were numbers in here, but I'm not worried about the numbers. For so many unsafe acts and conditions, eventually you're going to have a minor injury or several minor injuries. After several minor injuries, it's going to lead to a more severe injury, and eventually it's going to lead to a fatality. So the numbers aren't really important to me, but that's what they're saying in the Heinrich triangle theory, okay? Now I see people frantically writing, and I did not bring copies of my presentation, but if you have a jump drive, I'd be happy to download it for you. If you leave me a card, I'll email it to you. I firmly believe in the safety world, you should share everything. Nothing is proprietary if you're in this business to help people and save lives, okay? So I will share it with you. So if you look at why do these exist, 95% of the unsafe acts and conditions are based on behavior. And this triangle left out the near misses that we're just filling out the report and not looking at, and they're not meaning anything. So if 95% of these are based on behavior and the results are at the top of the triangle, what kind of leadership actions can we implement at the bottom of the triangle that might change this behavior, which will in turn change the results at the top? Okay? And we have those broken down into different topics. First one is investigation. We've kind of already covered this with your question over there. If you're doing investigations and you're not doing anything with that information, they're not doing you any good, okay? The whole purpose of the investigation is to figure out what went wrong, and it's typically something in the system that went wrong. It's not just that stupid employee making a stupid decision. And I'll give you a really good example of this. I get a call one day. I'm working at Thomas McGee by now, but this is a guy that owns like one of the largest roofing companies in Kansas City, commercial roofer, not residential. And he's not our accountant, but I know him. And he calls me and he's livid because OSHA just left one of his job sites and he's pretty sure they're going to get a citation because one of their employees did not have on fall protection. And Sharon, damn it, I'm tired of getting OSHA citations because employees aren't wearing fall protection. When are they going to start citing employees? This guy never wears his fall protection. He should get the citation. And I said, okay. I said, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I know you. You're the owner of your company. You're not out on the job sites. You're sitting in your office behind the desk, and you just told me on the phone that this guy never wears fall protection, and everybody knows it. And I said, you know it, and you're in the office? He goes, yeah, I know it. Everybody knows it. And I said, okay, I'm going to ask you another question. I also know that you don't have employees out working on jobs with one employee or two employees. You have crews with supervisors working on commercial projects. Well, yeah. I said, okay. So this guy, his supervisor, knows he doesn't wear his fall protection. Well, yeah, he knows, Sharon. He's been trained, he was given the equipment, he never wears it. And I said, and that's exactly why you're getting the citation, because why does that guy still work for you? Who's holding him accountable? Obviously, you're not. You're not holding the supervisor accountable to make sure the employee does what he's supposed to do. Nobody's being held accountable. And you're calling and asking me why the employee doesn't get the citation? He got real quiet and he goes, can you come do a training for my supervisors? But that kind of goes to this, to this, to this, to this. Does that not cover almost all of those things right there? But it was if he would have fallen off that roof, and it would have been a fatality, and OSHA showed up to investigate that fatality, it's not going to be that that dumbass employee didn't have his fall protection on. It's going to be the dumbass supervisor didn't make him wear it, and neither did the dumbass owner. Okay? It's a system failure. It is not the stupid employee's failure. I think we talked about this enough. You guys care if I just slide by this? I don't think we need to delve into more detail. If you're going to do near misses, you report it, you need to investigate them, and you need to use the information. I tend. I don't. You need to use the information to make changes. You have to use discipline, but discipline should be your last resort. Okay? And it should be something that you learn from, not something that's punitive. Think about your kids, okay? If you're just disciplining them for punitive reasons, what are they going to do? The minute you're gone, they're going to do whatever they were doing that made you mad, that you disciplined them for, because they know you're not there, so they can do it when you're not there. But if you teach them and mentor them, and you do it to affect change, they might quit doing that when you're not around. So when you walk up and somebody's saying, here comes Sharon, don't let her see you doing that, and I quit writing employees up as a safety person. I never wrote employees up. Guess who I wrote up? Supervisors. I called them stupid boxers. Okay? Employees do what makes their supervisor happy. Supervisors are the main people here. When I was on, the last big job I did was the Kauffman Stadium renovation project. okay? $250 million project. I put almost 5,000 employees through orientation on that project. One day in orientation, I have this young electrician. First job, he's an apprenticeship. It was a union job. He's an apprentice. Brand new, first job. Get through orientation, get him badged. Later that afternoon, I'm out walking around the job site and I see this poor kid getting in a boom lift. And he couldn't get it to operate. And I walked up to him and I said, poor thing, he was scared. I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, my supervisor told me to go do this and to use this lift. I said, have you ever operated one of these before? No. Did he teach you how to operate it? No. He had on his harness for fall protection. The shock absorber part of his harness was hooked off to the guardrail of the lift. Okay? I said, have you ever worn a harness and a lanyard before? No. Did they not teach you how to wear the harness and the lanyard? No. I said, why don't you come down and let's go find your supervisor? Okay? So what message did that supervisor give that kid? I really don't give a shit about your safety on this job. We're going to get the job done. Okay? And that poor employee doesn't deserve a disciplinary write-up for that, but the supervisor does. Okay? But you have to hold people accountable for their actions, and if it is for, sometimes you have to do it as punitive. Sometimes you have to. People just won't learn. Okay? Like that supervisor I just talked about. You have to hold, comment? Okay. You have to hold people accountable. You hold people accountable for production. I'm going to look back there in the corner for the guy who said he's upper level management. You hold people accountable for production. You hold people accountable for quality. Why don't you hold them accountable for safety? This is not safety first, not safety as an add-on or cost, but safety across the board just as important as everything else. If you do that, it becomes a natural part of how you operate as an organization. Safety moves, and a lot of people that don't have safety directors, it's the HR manager's job for safety. And that poor HR person is so stressed because they can't do safety and HR and everything. I firmly don't believe a lot of companies need safety directors or safety managers. And it depends. How big are you? How good are you doing this with your supervisors? Are you requiring your supervisors to manage safety in your organization? If you have strong supervisors and this is part of their job, you might just be able to hire a safety consultant every once in a while when you need some help. Supervisors can drive your safety program for a lot of organizations. What happens though, smaller organizations hire a safety person because they don't want to do it because it sucks, and then it's the safety person's job and nobody else's. Okay? This also takes away that safety comp thing, us versus them. I'm going to go through this real quick. Are you sure you're right? Because I'm only showing 11:30.
Yeah, it's
My watch slow?
Yeah, 5 more minutes.
Okay. 4 steps to accountability. You can't hold anybody accountable for anything unless you tell them what you expect of them. Go back to your kids, okay? You can't hold them accountable unless you define your expectations. But once you've defined those expectations and you've trained them on how to do it, we went out and trained all of our supervisors how to do a meaningful safety inspection. We had a list, but there were places on that list for you to write stuff down, and we didn't just want check marks on that list. So we went out and showed them how to do a good safety inspection. And we would take some of the ones that some supervisors did that were really good and show them, here's an example of a good safety inspection. So you define what your expectations are, you train them on how to do it, how you want it done, and then you measure them. So these are things that can be measured beyond your incident rate, days away from work case rate, EMR, all of that kind of stuff. You want good, measurable things that can be measured now, okay? And then you recognize the people that are doing stuff right. And I started doing this before I left construction too, and you can do it on your inspections. And I used to do it. Now, keep in mind, we only self-performed carpenter work and labor work. Everything else was subcontracted. So if I would be out doing an inspection on a job site, and I would see a contractor doing something really nice, why can't I put that on my inspection report instead of just putting on the report? Because what do we tend to do in safety? We look for stuff that's wrong, right? What are you not doing right? You even have people say when you walk up to them, okay, Sharon, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to fix? Okay? So when I started writing on those reports, hey, thanks, so-and-so, company name, really good job on this. And I would sit down in our weekly meetings with our subcontractors, and they all get a copy of that report, and we review it. Do you not think that makes those subs that are doing the right thing happy, and they want to continue that good behavior, just like you're raising kids? They want to continue to do what's right because they're getting noticed in a meeting, and then the other contractors get jealous of that, so they want to step up to the plate, and they want that good stuff written on there too. So start looking or recognizing things that are being done right instead of always focusing on what's wrong, okay?
I just have a rule of thumb I've heard that you have to praise 7 times for every 1 correction. Just a human reaction to positive and negative feedback is what I've heard. It's hard to do.
And some
but
people don't want you to do that publicly. Maybe you have to wait till the end of the day and pull them aside. Some people want everybody to know about it. So you have to kind of know your people too, okay? So I'm going to skip through this because we pretty much talked about that. We've almost talked about this as well, communication. One-on-one communication is essential, okay? If you have the supervisor that poo-poos safety and thinks it's a waste of time and it just costs extra money and he's grumpy about it, we're going to have a safety inspection today, and he does all that stuff, what do you think the employees that work under that supervisor, they're going to think the same thing, okay? So you have to have positive supervisors that believe in safety. And I still see this with contractors that I work with now when I go out and visit them. I can walk on a job and know the disposition of the supervisor in relation to safety in an instant. In an instant, okay? That's why your supervisors are core to this, okay? Is what management saying to you is credible? Safety first. Oh, we gotta have this project done by Friday, get this done, okay? It has to be credible. Are you asking your employees? If you identify something, do you go to your employees for solutions? They're the best ones. Don't come up with, and I will tell you, you know, the video we saw on the J. Dunn, and they're different now and everything, and J. Dunn is a very good company, and they have a very good safety department, but they really need to be giving their employees the right to make those decisions, okay? And I think they are now. I think they are. And you want the message to be meaningful. What you really want is for your employees in the field to start talking to each other. Because if you get hurt out there, it doesn't just affect you, okay? It affects anyone that you have at home that cares about you, but this is your coworker. And now they're not going to hire someone to take your place because they're going to find some light-duty job assignment, keep paying you so that their numbers stay good, okay? Well, we're still paying him, so we're not going to have a lost time. Our numbers are good, blah, blah, blah. So now poor Amelia is going to have to pick up the slack and do twice as much work because she's covering for you, which puts her in danger of getting hurt. So it affects more than just you, okay? And you have to be brave enough to look at him and tell him when he's doing something that's at Doc said move, okay? I mean, if all of that roofing crew, you can't tell me somebody couldn't look at that guy and say, put your fall protection on, and he would have done it if they would have demeaned him enough. Peer pressure is amazing, is it not? Yeah. And here's the recognition, okay? And oh my God, when I worked at Black and Beach, they were so big on this. If we had no accidents for this month, then everybody gets a jacket or a hat or a t-shirt. And then what ended up happening is all your contractors, that's an expectation. What do we get this month? What do we get this month? Or what do we get this month? A cooler. I want this. I want this. That's all crap too, okay? If I am going to give you a t-shirt, and you guys think about this, if I give you a t-shirt that says, quit texting and driving, if you text and drive, is that going to stop you from texting and driving? Hell no, it's not going to stop you. So if I give you a ball cap that says safety first, and you're a roofer who doesn't use your fall protection equipment, you're going to have that ball cap on to protect yourself from the sun, but you're going to go up and work on that roof without fall protection. Okay? So recognition, and you guys, it doesn't even have to cost money. It's a pat on the back. It's nice job. Hey, thanks for pointing that out. Good solution. Does that not go a long way? And it should be pretty immediate, and it does not have to be balanced with constructive criticism. Be sincere, okay? I can't harp on this enough. I need to wrap up, I think, because you need questions. It may not be, training for your employees is easy. It doesn't have to be in a room like this with chairs and desks and PowerPoint presentation. It can be in the field, it can be 5 minutes, but please make it meaningful. Don't use canned toolbox meetings, okay? Make it meaningful, fill out a form, get your employee involvement. But the big thing is, supervisors in construction were not taught how to do this. They weren't taught how to do a safety meeting. They weren't taught how to do an inspection. They know how to build stuff, right? I have the utmost respect for these guys out in the field. I couldn't do what they do, okay? Do you need to focus on getting your supervisors trained on how to do the right thing? Because if you're going to make it something that you expect of them, a managed expectation for performance evaluations that's measurable, you've got to teach them how to do it how you want it done. Okay? Again, job site conditions, field employees, responsibility of the supervisor, primary responsibility. Safety staff is to audit their effectiveness and to be their support system, to find them resources. If they call with a question, to help them with the answer, okay? Supervisors with the strongest safety records, and believe it or not, you guys, there are many studies. If you make safety part of your culture and treat it just like everything else, you're going to be more productive. You're going to build better relationships. You're going to do everything that the gentleman this morning talked about over here on having the right teams put together. Everything's going to go up, and it's not going to cost you that much money, okay? It costs you more money, like the check kiters and the felons that we all look at and think, man, if they put all that effort into doing something that was legal, they would be really, really good at it. Sometimes I look at contractors and think, if you put all the effort that you did into not doing something on the safety side and just doing it, making it part of your organization, you would be amazing. Okay? Change. Here's what I want to get to. I'm going to skip. I had a little exercise, but I'm going to skip it. Okay? How can you set the tone? Well, if you don't get upper level management, and you need to think about this, and you need to think, do I want to keep working at this company as well? Are they spending money on people, on safety, or are they just spending it on production? Okay? Is it measured as tightly as production? I mean, we all know the schedules and all that when you go on a a job site, you look at all that. Is safety measured as tightly as that? Is there a larger reward for productivity than for safety? Is it teamwork, or is it them versus us, or police versus police? And if it's them versus us when it comes to safety, or you're the cop, you're the safety cop, and you're out there to write tickets, you're nowhere near having a good safety culture. You have a culture, but it's not where it needs to be. Is your system in place to save lives or comply with regulations? And are supervisors required to do safety tasks daily? And you know what I always hear? My supervisors have too much on their plate. They're busy enough as it is. They don't have time for that. Well, if it was part of their job, they would have an expectation that it was part of their job. And what do supervisors do? They delegate work, correct? So they can take some of their safety activities and delegate it to other employees. And that's where you're flexible there. One supervisor likes doing it, another supervisor doesn't. They have somebody on their team that is really into it. Let them delegate it just so it gets done. Okay? Here's an exercise I typically do, but what I want to tell you here is for your culture to improve, you're probably going to have to affect some change. And the scary part about that is most of us view change as we're either losing something, something's being taken away from us, or you're adding stuff and making me do more stuff for the same amount of money. Okay? So we need to get past that. And then what is a challenge is when you start trying to affect change, we tend to keep going back to what we were used to doing because it's a habit, right? And old habits die hard. So we keep trying to revert back to what was originally what we were doing. We have to get past that, okay? When people get used to that, it makes it hard to affect change. But change can be really positive. You just have to get past the negative connotations there. So none of the upper level management wants to do anything, okay? They don't want to do any of this. You as safety people, or engineers, or whatever your jobs are, focus on the activities that you're doing, okay? So this fits in really well with what you were saying. We're doing near-miss reports and nothing's being done with them, okay? Well, if you're doing the report, you're doing the activity, but make it a quality activity and use that near-miss report for learning in your organization. The hell with your CM, the hell with your owner, the hell with your GC. Make it a quality activity for you. Same with the safety people. If you're out there doing activities, make it a quality activity on you. I already talked about this, focus on positives. Sometimes you still need to bring up the negatives, but if you start focusing on the positives, you're going to get that repeat behavior. Okay? Give recognition when it's deserved. And the biggest thing is communicate constantly, constantly.